Okay, I want to tell you one of history's most unbelievable true stories. Seriously. It's about a man so brazen, so brilliant, that he pulled off a crime that sounds like it was literally ripped from a movie script. He sold one of the world's most famous landmarks. This is the story of Victor Lustig.
So picture this. The year is 1925. Paris is buzzing, and the Eiffel Tower, which was actually supposed to be a temporary structure, is now a permanent and very, very costly part of the skyline. We're talking about a 7,000-ton iron symbol of France. To pretty much everyone, it's priceless. But to a guy named Victor Lustig, well, it was an opportunity.
I mean, it sounds like the setup to a joke, right? But Lustig was dead serious. So, how on earth do you convince people you have the authority to sell a national monument? Well, the answer is just this masterful blend of research, psychology, and pure, unadulterated audacity.
And that brings us to his most legendary con of all, where we're calling the impossible sale. And look, this wasn't some simple little trick. Oh no, this was a meticulously orchestrated performance, one that preyed on ambition and the irresistible power of a really, really good story.
So where did it all begin? With a newspaper article, of all things. Lustig reads that the city is actually struggling with the tower's insane upkeep costs. And that's his in. He creates his completely fake identity, forges official government documents, and invites the top scrap metal dealers in Paris to a very secret, very exclusive meeting. He set the stage perfectly.
Now his pitch? It was just genius. He didn't just offer them a deal, he offered them a secret. He told them, look, this is a hush-hush government operation. That little twist made the dealers feel like privileged insiders. And that secrecy, it made the whole thing way more believable and a whole lot more desirable.
You see, Lustig was a master at reading people. He didn't just look for greedy people, he looked for insecure people. He zeroed in on a man named André Poisson, a guy who was just desperate to prove himself, to climb the social ladder and join the Parisian elite. Lustig knew that for a man like Poisson, buying the Eiffel Tower wasn't really about the metal, it was all about status.
And just like that, the deal was done. Lustig walked away with 70,000 francs for the sale and a hefty bribe on top of that. He immediately hopped on a train to Austria and just waited. He watched the Parisian newspapers. When nothing appeared because Poisson was too embarrassed to report the crime, Lustig knew he'd gotten away with it. In fact, and this is the crazy part, he went back to Paris to try the exact same con all over again.
So you gotta ask, what kind of person actually pulls this off? I mean, selling the Eiffel Tower wasn't his first con, and it sure as heck wasn't his last. To really understand the man, we have to go back to the beginning.
From a very young age, Victor Lustig was a total paradox. His classmates, they thought he was charming and headstrong, but an official school report painted a very different picture. Let's just say it described a moral vacuum. And this duality, this charm on one side and cold calculation on the other, that would pretty much define his entire life.
His early life really reads like a blueprint for a master criminal. He got expelled on his first day of school. He was a gambler by 19. And soon after that, he started honing his craft on the wealthy passengers of transatlantic ocean liners. He was a natural, learning how to exploit the closed, trusting environment of a long trip at sea.
But Lustig didn't just rely on charm, not at all. He had this refined toolkit of scams and a personal philosophy that made him incredibly effective. He literally had a playbook for deception.
Okay, take his Rumanian Box scam. It was a simple but brilliant little device he claimed could print money. But the real genius was in the patience. After a 6-hour printing process, a real, genuine bill that he'd loaded in there earlier would emerge. He'd then take his victim to a bank to prove the copy was real. And once they were convinced, they'd buy the box for a fortune, only to find out it produced nothing but blank paper.
He even had his own personal 10 commandments for con artists. And these weren't about grand schemes. They were all about subtle manipulation. Be a patient listener. Never look bored. Wait for them to reveal their politics. Then just agree with them. Never boast. He understood that the best cons aren't built on tricks. They're built on trust and a really deep understanding of human psychology.
But Lustig's ambition? It knew no bounds. He decided to take his skills and put them to the ultimate test. He decided to target a man who wasn't just powerful, but lethally dangerous. He was actually going to try and con a crime lord.
So during the Great Depression, Lustig set his sights on none other than Al Capone, America's most feared gangster. A man you simply did not cross. I mean, to even attempt this took an almost insane level of confidence.
Now, this might be his most brilliant con of all, because it was a con in reverse. He got Capone to invest $50,000, and then he did absolutely nothing with it. He just stuck it in a safe deposit box. 2 months later, he comes back and returns every single penny, explaining that the deal had collapsed. In the eyes of a hardened criminal, he had just established himself as an honest man.
So, having earned Capone's trust, Lustig then confessed that the failed deal had left him totally broke. Capone, so impressed by his supposed integrity, just hands him $5,000 to tide him over. That was the real con. He didn't steal a fortune, he manipulated a mob boss into just giving it to him.
But, even for a master like Lustig, the game couldn't last forever. Every con man's story has a final chapter, and his was no exception. And his downfall, it would be just as dramatic as his rise.
In the end, it wasn't some brilliant detective or a rival gangster who brought him down. Nope, it was a jealous mistress. After she learned he was cheating on her, she made one anonymous phone call to the federal authorities and exposed his massive, large-scale counterfeiting ring.
But even cornered, Lustig had one last trick up his sleeve. The day before his trial, he faked an illness and escaped from a federal prison using a rope made of bedsheets. His freedom didn't last long, though. He was recaptured 27 days later and sent to Alcatraz. He'd spend the rest of his life there before dying of pneumonia in 1947.
Even in death, Lustig was a man of aliases. This right here is his official death certificate, and it wasn't filed under his own name. It was filed as Robert V. Miller. But it's the little detail under occupation that provides the final, perfect ironic punchline to his entire life story.
Apprentice salesman for the man who sold the Eiffel Tower, who conned Al Capone, who ran a global counterfeiting empire. The official record of his life's work is this humble, almost laughable description. It's like a final understated con from beyond the grave.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? Was he simply a brilliant criminal? Or was his true genius his profound, if cynical, understanding of what drives us all? Our desires, our insecurities, and our deep, deep willingness to believe a good story.